Captain stood on the bridge of the UHMS Hippocrates, watching the stars through the large windows. The ship was huge, painted white with red crosses on its sides. Anyone looking at it would think it was just a hospital ship. That was exactly what wanted them to think. "Captain, we have 37 new patients coming aboard," said Dr. Hayes, the chief medical officer. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. "Most are humans from the attack on New Barcelona, but there are also some refugees and 3 deserters." Nodded. The were the problem. They were a species that believed in killing anyone they thought was weak. They had been attacking human colonies for months, burning whole cities and taking prisoners as slaves. The 3 deserters on board had refused to kill civilians. Their own people would hunt them down for that choice. "How bad are the injuries?" asked. "Bad," Dr. Hayes said. "The humans have burns from plasma weapons. They have broken bones from falling buildings. The deserters are worse. Their own people shot them when they tried to leave." Walked through the medical bay. It was enormous, taking up most of the ship's center. Doctors and nurses moved between beds, treating patients from different species. The humans looked scared but grateful. The tall beings with blue skin kept to themselves. The deserters lay in special beds, their reptile-like bodies covered in bandages. "Doctor," said to a young medic, "how are the patients?" "They keep asking why we help them," the medic replied. "They say their people would never treat enemy wounded." "That's why we're different," said. Commander Torres appeared at his side. He was head of security, a short but strong man with scars on his face. To most people, he looked like a typical ship's guard, only knew he had been a Marine colonel before joining this mission. "Captain, we need to talk," Torres said quietly. They walked to a quiet corner of the medical bay. Torres looked around to make sure no one could hear them. "We got 3 distress calls in the last hour," Torres said. "Our fleets are attacking colonies in the Henderson system. They're asking for military help." Felt the familiar weight of command. The Hippocrates was supposed to be a medical ship. They treated the wounded and stayed out of battles, but knew their real purpose. This ship was an experiment. Could humans build a vessel that could heal and fight at the same time? "How far away?" asked. 6 hours at full speed," Torres replied. "But Captain, if we go there, we'll have to reveal what we really are." Looked around the medical bay. Doctors worked to save lives without caring about species or politics. This was what humans did best. They helped others, even their enemies. But sometimes helping others meant being ready to fight. "Keep monitoring the distress calls," said, and Torres put the crew on condition yellow. Torres smiled. Condition yellow was not a medical alert, it was a military one. "Yes, ma'am." As Torres left, Dr. Hayes approached again. He looked worried. "Captain, I heard some strange sounds from the lower decks," he said. "Like machinery moving. The engineering crew says it's just life support systems, but it sounds different." Put her hand on his shoulder. "Doctor, do you trust me?" "Of course, Captain." "Then don't worry about the sounds. Focus on your patients." Dr. Hayes nodded and walked away, but could see he was still confused. Most of the medical staff didn't know the ship's real purpose. They thought they were on a normal hospital ship with better armor than usual. Walked to the engineering section. The halls here were different from the medical areas. They were darker and had thick metal walls. She found Chief Engineer Park working at a control panel. "How long until the Peacemaker is ready?" asked quietly. Park looked up. She was a small woman with grease on her hands and smart eyes. "Give me 4 hours, Captain. The magnetic field generators need more time to charge. We've never fired it before." "I know, I'm hoping we won't need to." Park studied his face. "But you think we will?" "They don't respect mercy. They see medical ships as easy targets. If they come after us, they'll expect us to run or surrender." "They're going to be very surprised," Park said with a grin. Returned to the bridge. Through the windows, space looked peaceful, but she knew that was about to change. The Hippocrates carried almost 400 patients and 600 crew members. Most of them still believed they were on a simple hospital mission. Lieutenant, the communications officer, looked up from her station. "Captain, we're receiving a general broadcast from or command. They're claiming victory in the Henderson system. They say they destroyed 3 human colonies and captured a medical ship." His hands tightened into fists. Another hospital ship had been lost. The crew was probably dead or enslaved. The Or didn't understand the difference between military and medical targets. To them, all humans were enemies. "Any word on survivors?" asked. "No, Captain. The broadcast cut off after the victory claim." Stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, or fleets were hunting for more targets. They looked for ships they thought were weak and defenseless. Ships exactly like the Hippocrates appeared to be. "Captain," Tor's voice came over the intercom. "Long-range sensors show 3 ships approaching. They're not responding to our medical neutrality signals." Closed her eyes for a moment. She had hoped for more time. The wounded patients needed days more treatment. Some would not survive if they had to fight now. "What type of ships?" she asked. "Or destroyers. They'll be here in 2 hours." Opened the ship-wide communication channel. Her voice would reach every person on board, human and alien alike. "Attention all crew and passengers. This is Captain. We have detected approaching hostile ships. All medical personnel should continue treating patients. Security teams, report to your stations. This ship will not run from anyone who threatens those under our protection." She turned to Lieutenant. "Send a message on all frequencies. Tell them we are a medical vessel treating wounded from multiple species. Remind them of interstellar law regarding hospital ships." "Yes, Captain." Knew the message would not work. The Or did not care about laws or medical neutrality. They were coming to destroy what they saw as a helpless target. They thought humans were too soft to fight back properly. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Deep in the ship, machinery began to hum. The Hippocrates was more than it appeared to be, and soon the whole galaxy would know it. War Commander stood in the command center of his flagship, His reptilian eyes studied the sensor readings with satisfaction. 3 human ships had been destroyed in the Henderson system. Their colonies burned, and hundreds of humans were now slaves in the cargo holds. "Commander," said his second-in-command, "we have detected another human ship. It appears to be alone and defenseless." Al looked at the display screen. The ship was large and white, with red symbols on its hull. His computer identified it as a medical vessel. "A hospital ship," Al said, his voice full of disgust. "Humans and their weakness. They waste resources on healing their enemies instead of killing them." The other Or officers laughed. They were warriors bred for battle. The idea of helping wounded enemies was impossible for them to understand. Weakness deserved death, not treatment. "Shall we destroy it quickly?" asked the weapons officer. "No," Al said. "I want to capture it first. Human medical technology could be useful, and the doctors will make good slaves." Al had been fighting humans for 3 years. They were soft creatures who talked about peace and mercy. Their colonies fell easily because they spent money on hospitals instead of weapons. Human soldiers fought bravely enough, but their leaders always held them back with rules about not hurting civilians. "How many ships escort the medical vessel?" Al asked. "None, Commander. It travels alone." "Perfect. 3 destroyers against 1 hospital ship. This will be over quickly." Al studied the intelligence reports about human medical ships. They carried no weapons and relied on other ships for protection. Their hulls were thin to make room for medical equipment. A single plasma blast could destroy one. "Signal the other ships," Al ordered. "We attack in formation. Disable their engines first, then board them. I want the medical staff alive for questioning." Meanwhile, aboard the Hippocrates, Captain watched the approaching enemy ships on her sensors. They were still an hour away, but she could see their attack formation clearly. 3 or destroyers, reported Lieutenant. Each one carries 50 plasma cannons and boarding pods for 200 warriors. Dr. Hayes appeared on the bridge, looking worried. Captain, some of the patients are asking about the approaching ships. The or deserters are terrified. They know what their people do to medical ships. What do they do? Asked, though she already knew the answer. They capture the doctors and force them to treat only or wounded. Then they kill everyone else. Nodded grimly. She had read the reports from destroyed hospital ships. The or saw medical neutrality as a human delusion. They believed only the strong deserved to live. Doctor, I need you to trust me completely, said. In the next hour, this ship is going to change in ways that will surprise you. Don't be afraid and don't ask questions until after we're safe. Dr. Hayes looked confused, but he nodded. I trust you, Captain. Turned to Tors. Status report on our special systems. All crew members with military training are at their stations, Tors said quietly. The medical staff still doesn't know, but they will soon. Walked through the ship, observing the preparations. In the medical bay, doctors continued treating patients, but she noticed something new. Several of the nurses were checking equipment that didn't look medical. They moved with the discipline of trained soldiers. In the engineering sections, Chief Park and her team worked frantically at control panels. The strange humming sound was getting louder. Could feel vibrations in the floor as massive machinery moved inside the ship's hull. Park, how much longer? Asked. 20 minutes to full power, Park replied. But Captain, we've never tested this at full charge. I don't know what will happen. We're about to find out. Visited the security stations next. What looked like normal ship guards were checking weapons that seemed too advanced for a medical vessel. Commander Tors supervised the preparation of equipment that definitely wasn't standard for hospital ships. Tors, are the men ready? Yes, Captain, but they're nervous. Fighting in space is different from ground combat. They'll do fine, we trained for this. Returned to the bridge as the or ships entered weapons range. Lieutenant was trying to communicate with them on all frequencies. This is the UHMS Hippocrates, a medical vessel operating under interstellar law. We are treating wounded from multiple species, including your own people. Do not approach with hostile intent. The only response was silence. On the Al listened to the human message with amusement. They actually think we care about their laws. Prepare to fire. Commander, said the sensor officer, the human ship's energy readings are strange. They show much higher power levels than expected for a medical vessel. Probably just oversized life support systems, Al said dismissively. Humans waste energy on comfort instead of weapons. Back on the Hippocrates opened a ship-wide communication channel. All crew and patients, this is the captain. We are about to be attacked by hostile forces. Medical personnel should secure patients and take cover. All other crew, prepare for combat operations. The ship's computer began announcing changes. Condition red, all hands to battle stations, medical staff to emergency positions. Throughout the ship, panels in the walls slid open. Hidden weapons racks appeared. Armor plating began moving into position over the windows. The gentle hum of medical equipment was joined by the deeper sound of military systems coming online. Dr. Hayes stared in shock as nurses he had worked with for months revealed themselves as trained soldiers. They moved patients to protected areas while checking assault rifles with practiced ease. What is happening? He asked over the intercom. Doctor, you're about to learn why this ship was really built, replied. In the medical bay, the deserters watched the preparations with growing amazement. One of them, a warrior named spoke to Dr. Hayes in broken human language. Your ship, not normal hospital ship, said. This ship, built for war. "That's impossible," Dr. Hayes replied. "We're doctors, not soldiers." A pointed at a nurse who was loading a plasma rifle with expert speed. "She doctor and soldier, you humans, different than we thought." Outside, the destroyers moved closer. Could see the white hull of the hospital ship clearly now. It looked exactly like the medical vessels described in their intelligence reports. Large, slow, and defenseless. "Target their engines," Al commanded. "One shot should disable them." The weapons officer prepared to fire. On his screen, targeting lasers locked onto the Hippocrates. The human ship made no effort to run or hide. "Humans," Al said with contempt. "They don't even try to escape fire." 3 plasma beams shot across space toward the hospital ship. They should have torn through its thin hull and disabled the engines immediately. Instead, they hit something invisible and exploded harmlessly in bright flashes of light. "What?" Al stared at his screen in confusion. "The ship has shields. That's impossible." His sensor officer looked panicked. "Commander, the human ship is changing." On the display screen, they watched the white hospital ship transform before their eyes. Armor plating slid over the medical symbols. Hidden weapon ports opened along the hull. The ship's center section began to rotate and extend, revealing something that made every warrior freeze in terror. The humans had built their hospital ship around the largest weapon any of them had ever seen. "Retreat," Al whispered, then louder, "All ships retreat now." But it was too late. The human ship's main weapon was already charging, and space itself seemed to hum with barely contained power. The second wave of plasma fire from the destroyers struck the Hippocrates with the force of small suns. The ship's shields flared bright blue, absorbing energy that should have melted through any hospital vessel's hull. Instead, the massive white ship continued its transformation as if nothing had happened. Captain stood on her bridge, watching her ship reveal its true nature. "All medical personnel to emergency positions," she announced calmly. "Marines to battle stations. Engineering, bring the Peacemaker online." Dr. Hayes grabbed a support rail as the ship shuddered. Around him, the medical bay was changing completely. What he had thought were simple walls were sliding apart to reveal thick armor plating. Medical equipment that couldn't be moved was being covered by protective barriers that rose from the floor. "This is impossible," Dr. Hayes whispered. "We're a hospital ship." Nurse Martinez, who had worked beside him for 6 months, looked up from securing a wounded patient. In her hands was a military assault rifle that she handled with obvious expertise. "Doctor, we're whatever we need to be," Martinez said. "Right now, we need to be both." Throughout the ship, the crew revealed their dual nature. Doctors continued treating patients while putting on body armor. Engineers worked to keep life support running while charging weapons systems. Even the food service staff moved with military precision as they secured supplies and prepared for battle. In the ship's heart, Chief Engineer Park watched her greatest creation come to life. The Peacemaker was 20 meters long and 2 meters wide. It was built into the ship's central structure, hidden inside what everyone thought was just a large medical bay. "Magnetic field generators at 60%, Park reported to the bridge. "Targeting systems online. We'll have full power in 3 minutes." Opened a channel to the entire ship. "All crew, this is your captain. What you're seeing is why we trained for 2 years before this mission. The UHMS Hippocrates is humanity's first medical battleship. We heal, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves." On the War Commander, Al watched his easy victory turn into a nightmare. The human hospital ship was now clearly a warship disguised as a medical vessel, but that should have been impossible. His intelligence reports said humans always marked their warships clearly. "How did our spies miss this?" Al demanded. His intelligence officer looked terrified. "Commander, our reports show this ship was built in civilian shipyards. It was registered as a pure medical vessel. There was no indication of weapons. Al studied the transformed ship on his screen. The white hull was now covered in gray armor. Gun ports had opened along the sides, revealing weapons that looked far too advanced for any human technology he had seen. But most frightening was the massive central structure that was still extending from the ship's core. "What is that weapon?" he asked. His weapons officer ran scans and grew pale. "Commander, it appears to be some kind of magnetic acceleration device. The power readings are impossible." The Hippocrates completed its transformation. Where a peaceful medical ship had been, now floated a vessel that looked like it belonged in the toughest military fleet. But the red crosses were still visible on the hull, now painted on armor plating. Felt the deep vibration as the Peacemaker reached full charge. Throughout the ship, every light dimmed as enormous amounts of power flowed into the magnetic field generators. "Captain," Chief Park's voice came over the intercom, "the Peacemaker is ready to fire." Looked at the 3 enemy ships on her display. Each one carried 600 or warriors who had burned human colonies and enslaved civilians. But she also knew that each ship carried wounded soldiers who had never chosen to be here. "Target the lead ship's engine section," ordered. "Disable, don't destroy." "Captain," Commander Torres said quietly, "they fired on a hospital ship. By law, we can destroy them completely." "I know," replied, "but we're better than they are." Lieutenant suddenly looked up from her communication station. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from one of the ships. They're requesting terms for surrender." Raised an eyebrow. "Already, we haven't even fired yet." "Commander Al himself is requesting to speak with you." Accepted the communication. The main screen filled with the image of a large reptilian face with glowing red eyes. Al looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the galaxy. "Human Captain," Al said, "there has been a misunderstanding. We did not realize this was a combat vessel." "This is the UHMS Hippocrates, a medical vessel," replied calmly. "You fired on a hospital ship. That's a war crime under interstellar law." "But you have weapons," Al protested. "We have the means to protect our patients, yes. The sick and wounded deserve protection from those who would harm them." Al was silent for a moment. In his culture, showing mercy was seen as weakness, but the weapon pointing at his ship was clearly not weak. "What do you want?" "Surrender your vessels and submit to medical inspection," said. "Any wounded aboard your ships will receive treatment alongside our current patients." "You would treat our wounded?" "Of course, that's what medical ships do." Al looked confused. The humans continued to claim this was a medical vessel, even while pointing an enormous weapon at him. Their captain spoke of treating enemy wounded as if it was the most natural thing in the galaxy. "And if we refuse?" he asked. His expression grew cold. "Then you'll discover why we named our main gun the Peacemaker." As if responding to her words, the massive weapon rotated to aim directly at the magnetic field generators created a sound like rolling thunder that could be heard even through space. On the bridge, every officer stepped back from their stations. The human weapon was larger than anything in their fleet. Sensor readings showed it was charged with enough power to destroy their ship completely. "Commander," his weapons officer whispered, "recommend immediate retreat." But wasn't finished talking. "War Commander Al, you have 30 seconds to decide. Surrender and receive treatment for your wounded, or face the consequences of attacking a medical vessel." Al realized he had made the worst mistake of his military career. He had attacked what he thought was a defenseless hospital ship. Instead, he had found humans who were exactly what the intelligence reports said: beings who showed mercy to their enemies. But they had also found humans who were prepared to enforce that mercy with overwhelming force. The countdown timer on display showed 10 seconds remaining. "We surrender," Al said finally. "But I don't understand. Why build a weapon this powerful just to defend a hospital ship? Smiled grimly. Because some things are worth fighting for, Commander. The right to heal the sick, the right to show mercy, the right to protect those who cannot protect themselves. 5 seconds, announced the computer. We surrender, Al shouted. All ships stand down. Nodded to her weapons officer. Power down the Peacemaker to standby, but keep it targeted. The thunderous sound of the charging weapon faded, but the massive remained pointed at the Orc fleet. On both sides, warriors who had expected a simple battle realized they had encountered something entirely new. A medical ship that could fight, doctors who were also soldiers, humans who showed mercy while carrying the biggest guns in the sector. Dr. Hayes called over the intercom, prepare to receive wounded from 3 or vessels. We're going to be very busy. Dr. Hayes, still staring at the transformation of his ship, finally understood what Captain had meant about trusting her. How many wounded should I expect, Captain? However many there are, Doctor, we treat them all. War Commander Al thought he had surrendered in time. His ships powered down their weapons and waited for the human captain to explain what would happen next. But then his communications officer screamed a warning. Commander, 2 more Orc fleets just dropped out of hyperspace. They're not responding to our surrender signals. On the display screen, 6 more destroyer ships appeared. These belonged to War Commander Al, Al's rival and a warrior who believed mercy was a disease that made species weak. Saw the new ships on her sensors and cursed quietly. Lieutenant, try to contact the new arrivals. I'm trying, Captain. They're jamming all communications. Commander Torres appeared at side. Captain, the new ships are charging weapons. They're going to fire on us and their own surrendered vessels. Realized what was happening. The second or commander didn't care about surrender. He would rather see his own people die than allow humans to show them mercy. All hands prepare for combat, announced. Medical teams secure all patients immediately. The lead ship of the new fleet, opened fire with all weapons. Plasma beams and missiles streaked toward both the Hippocrates and Al's surrendered ships. The human hospital ship's shields absorbed the attack meant for them, but Al's damaged vessel couldn't protect itself. Captain, Dr. Hayes called from the medical bay. The or prisoners are asking to help fight. They say War Commander Al is their enemy too. Made a quick decision. Tell them they can help by directing our medical teams to their wounded. We're going to need all the help we can get. The Peacemaker had been powered down to standby, but Chief Park brought it back to full charge in record time. The magnetic field generators hummed with deadly energy as the massive turned toward the new threat. Target acquired, reported the weapons officer. Engines locked. Fire commanded. The Peacemaker discharged with a sound like the end of the world. The magnetic fields launched a tungsten projectile at 15% of light speed. It crossed the distance between ships in a fraction of a second and struck this engine section. The impact was devastating. The projectile punched through the alien ship's shields as if they didn't exist. It tore through armor plating that was designed to stop plasma cannons and nuclear missiles. This entire rear section exploded in a shower of metal and energy. But the ship didn't die completely. Had aimed for engines, not the command center or crew areas. The Orc destroyer was disabled but still had life support and emergency power. Holy, Commander Torres whispered, staring at the destruction. Status report on the target, demanded. Engines destroyed, weapons offline, but life support is holding, reported the sensor officer. Estimated crew survival, 80%. War Commander Al found himself floating in his damaged command center, held in place only by his safety harness. Half his crew was unconscious, and the other half was trying to understand what had just happened. Report, he shouted. Commander, our engines are gone, his engineering officer replied weakly. Whatever hit us went completely through the ship. I've never seen anything like it." Al looked at his tactical display. The human medical ship had fired once and completely disabled his flagship. His other 5 ships were now facing a weapon that could apparently destroy anything it aimed at. "Signal retreat," he ordered. "I can't, Commander. Our communications are destroyed." Meanwhile, the Hippocrates engaged the remaining 5 ships with its secondary weapons. Point defense systems that had been hidden throughout the hull opened fire with precise electromagnetic pulses. Instead of destroying the enemy fighters and boarding pods, the weapons disabled them, sending them drifting helplessly through space. Watched the battle with grim satisfaction. Her ship's weapons were designed not just to win fights, but to win them with minimal loss of life. Every disabled enemy ship meant wounded soldiers who would need medical attention. "Captain," Lieutenant called out, "I'm receiving distress signals from the damaged vessels. They have casualties and are requesting medical assistance." Didn't hesitate. "Grant the requests. Dr. Hayes, prepare to receive wounded from all 6 ships." "All 6? Dr. Hayes asked in amazement. "Captain, that's potentially 3,000 casualties." "Then we better get started." Throughout the Hippocrates, the crew shifted seamlessly from combat to medical operations. Weapons were secured and medical equipment was prepared. Marines who had been ready to repel boarders now prepared to help carry stretchers. War Commander Al, still aboard his damaged ship, watched the humans in disbelief. They had just defeated a superior force in minutes, and now they were preparing to treat the wounded enemies who had tried to kill them. "Open a channel to the human captain," he told his communications officer. His face appeared on his screen. "Yes, War Commander." "Captain, I must ask, why? We attacked your medical ship. We would have killed your patients and enslaved your crew. Why do you help us?" Considered the question carefully. "Because that's what separates us from those who choose cruelty, Commander. We choose mercy, even when it's difficult." "But you have the strongest weapons I've ever seen. You could rule this sector of space." "We could," agreed. "But ruling through fear isn't strength. It's weakness disguised as power." The first shuttles began arriving from the damaged ships. Watched through the hangar bay cameras as her medical teams worked alongside medics to treat the wounded. Species that had been enemies an hour ago were now working together to save lives. Dr. Hayes found himself treating a young soldier whose leg had been crushed in the impact. The soldier was barely conscious, but he kept trying to speak. "What is he saying?" Dr. Hayes asked one of the deserter prisoners who was helping as a translator. Listened carefully. "He asks why you help him. He says his people would let human wounded die." Dr. Hayes continued working on the soldier's leg. "Tell him that's why we're different. We're better than our worst impulses." Translated, and the young soldier's eyes widened with something like wonder. On the bridge, received a report from Chief Park. "Captain, the Peacemaker performed perfectly, but we used 30% of our power reserves in that one shot. If we have to fight again soon." "How long to recharge?" 6 hours for full power." Nodded. The weapon was devastating, but it couldn't be fired repeatedly without draining the ship's entire power grid. It was designed to end fights quickly, not to maintain long battles. "Captain," Commander Torres reported, "long-range sensors show a human battle fleet approaching. ETA 2 hours. Signal them and update Admiral on our status." Looked around her bridge. They had survived their first real combat test. The ship had performed exactly as designed. It had won a battle while minimizing casualties on all sides. Most importantly, they had maintained their medical mission even while fighting for their lives. War Commander Al was brought aboard the Hippocrates on a stretcher, his body badly injured in the impact. As Dr. Hayes worked to stabilize him, the alien commander stared up at the human doctor with confusion. "You save enemy lives," Al said weakly. "This makes no sense." It makes perfect sense, Dr. Hayes replied as he injected pain medication. Life is precious, regardless of species. But we are your enemies. You were shooting at us, Dr. Hayes corrected. That doesn't make you my enemy forever. As the medical bay filled with wounded from both sides, realized they had accomplished something unprecedented. They had fought a battle where both sides' wounded were being treated equally. Humans and/or worked side by side, focused not on the conflict that brought them together, but on the shared goal of preserving life. The peacemaker had spoken with thunder, but its message was one of mercy backed by strength. 3 days later, the medical bay of the UHMS Hippocrates looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Human doctors worked beside or medics, treating patients from both species. Former enemies shared beds and medical supplies while their wounds healed. War Commander sat in a recovery chair, his arm in a regeneration cast. Beside him lay a human colonist named Sarah, who had been injured in the original attack on New Barcelona. They had been talking for hours, something that would have been impossible before the battle. Your people saved my ship and my crew, Al told her. I still don't understand why. Sarah smiled weakly. She was still recovering from plasma burns, but her spirits were improving. Because it's the right thing to do, doesn't your people have medics? Yes, but they only treat or warriors. Civilians and enemies are left to die. That must be terrible for your medics. I can't imagine being a doctor and having to watch people die when I could save them. Al had never considered that perspective before. In our society, following orders was more important than individual feelings. But watching the human medical staff work, he saw something his people lacked. The doctors here seemed genuinely happy when they saved a life, regardless of species. Dr. Hayes approached their area, checking on both patients. How are you feeling today, Commander? Better, Al admitted. Doctor, may I ask you something? Of course. Why did you become a medic? Among my people, warriors are honored above all others. Healers are seen as weak. Dr. Hayes sat down beside the bed. I became a doctor because I wanted to fight death instead of causing it. Every life I save is a victory against the universe's tendency toward chaos and pain. But your captain carries the most powerful weapon I've ever seen. How do you serve both medicine and war? The peacemaker isn't a weapon of war, Dr. Hayes explained. It's a weapon of protection. We don't use it to conquer or destroy. We use it to create safe spaces where healing can happen. Across the medical bay, War Commander Al was having his own revelations. He had been the most seriously wounded in the attack, and Dr. Martinez had spent 18 hours in surgery saving his life. Now, he watched her work with a combination of gratitude and confusion. Dr. Martinez, he called out as she passed his bed. She stopped and checked his vital signs. How can I help you, Commander? Why did you work so hard to save me? I came here to kill your patients and destroy your ship. Dr. Martinez considered the question while adjusting his medication. Because that's not who you are now. In this medical bay, you're not a warrior or an enemy. You're a patient who needs help. But I could return to my ship and attack you again. Could you? Dr. Martinez asked. After seeing how we treat prisoners, after working alongside our staff, after talking with the humans you once planned to enslave. Al was quiet for a long moment. The truth was, he couldn't imagine attacking this ship again. The humans had shown him something his entire military career had told him was impossible strength combined with mercy. Captain made her daily rounds through the medical bay, checking on patients and crew. The past 3 days had been intense, but the results were beyond her hopes. The ship had not only survived its first major battle, but it had proven the concept behind its creation. Captain Calda, one of the original or deserters, may I speak with you? Approached his bed. I had been helping as a translator and mediator between the human staff and or patients. His unique perspective as someone who had rejected or military culture made him valuable to both sides. The other they ask me many questions, said. They want to know why humans fight differently than anyone else. What do you tell them? I tell them that humans fight for different reasons. Most species fight for territory or resources or pride. Humans fight for ideas. Nodded, what ideas? That all life has value, that mercy is strength, not weakness, that enemies can become allies. Paused. These are dangerous ideas for our society. Why dangerous? Because they make sense. Smiled and moved on to check with Dr. Hayes, who was reviewing patient charts with medics. The alien doctors were learning human treatment methods, while Dr. Hayes was learning about biology. Any problems with integration? Asked. None, Captain. In fact, the medical techniques for bone repair are superior to ours. We're learning a lot. One of the medics, a female named Ra, spoke up. Captain, we have request. Our ships, they have wounded who need surgery we cannot perform. May we bring them here? Of course, we'll make room. Ra looked amazed. You would treat more enemies. They wouldn't be enemies, corrected. They would be patients. Later that evening, received a communication from Admiral, commander of the approaching human fleet. His ships had arrived and taken positions around the Hippocrates, but had requested this private conversation. Admiral, the situation here is more complex than our original mission parameters, reported. I can see that, Captain. My intelligence officers tell me you've got 400 former enemies receiving medical treatment aboard your ship. Some of my commanders think you should transfer them to prisoner of war facilities. With respect, sir, that would violate medical neutrality. These beings came aboard as patients, not prisoners. Admiral studied's face on the communication screen. He was an old friend who had supported the medical battleship concept from the beginning. Captain, what's your assessment of the mission? The ship performed perfectly, Admiral. But more importantly, we've proven something about human nature. We can be the strongest force in the galaxy while maintaining our compassion. And any change in their attitudes? Looked around the bridge, where Lieutenant was coordinating with communications officers to locate more wounded among the fleet. Sir, 3 commanders have requested to join the human medical service. They want to learn our methods and bring them back to their people. That's unprecedented. Yes, sir. We may have done more than win a battle. We may have started changing how this war is fought. The next morning brought unexpected news. A massive fleet had arrived at the edge of the system, but they came under a flag of truce. Their commander, Supreme War Leader X, requested permission to come aboard the Hippocrates. Met him in the main conference room, accompanied by Dr. Hayes and War Commander Al, who had requested to be present. X was ancient by standards, covered in the ritual scars of 1,000 battles. Human Captain, X said formally, I have come to see this ship that defeats enemies by healing them. You're welcome to tour our medical facilities, Supreme War Leader. I have heard reports that cannot be true. My commanders tell me you treat enemy wounded as well as your own. That warriors who came to destroy you now work alongside your crew. Gestured toward Al. Perhaps War Commander could tell you about his experience. Al stood formally before his Supreme Commander. Sir, these humans have shown me that strength and mercy are not opposites. They are the same thing, seen from different angles. Explain. They have the power to destroy any fleet that threatens them, but they choose to disable and heal instead. This is not weakness. It is the ultimate demonstration of strength. X was silent for several minutes, considering this. Finally, he spoke. I would like to see your weapon, this peacemaker. Led him to the observation deck overlooking the massive. Even at rest, it was an impressive sight, 20 meters of electromagnetic acceleration technology that could throw projectiles at relativistic speeds. This weapon could destroy planets, X observed. Yes, agreed, but we use it to protect hospital ships. Why? Looked out at the stars, where human and our ships now traveled together, sharing medical supplies and technology. Because someone has to choose mercy, supreme war leader. Someone has to prove that civilization means more than just bigger guns. X spent the next 2 days observing the Hippocrates in operation. He watched former enemies work together. He saw wounded or warriors teaching human medical students about alien anatomy. He witnessed the impossible, a place where the rules of war had been replaced by the rules of medicine. On his final day, he met privately with, "Captain, I came here to understand how you defeated 3 of our fleets without destroying them. Now I understand something more important." "What's that?" "You have found a way to win wars without creating new enemies. Our conflicts with humans have produced only more hatred on both sides. Your method produces allies." "It's not perfect," admitted. "Some will always choose violence over cooperation." "Yes, but you have proven that another choice exists." X paused. "I am returning to or space with 12 of your medical officers. They will teach our healers human methods. In return, I am leaving 50 of our medics here to learn from you." "That's a remarkable step toward peace." "It is a first step," X corrected. "The real peace will come when both our species understand that healing is more powerful than destroying." As the supreme war leader departed, reflected on what they had accomplished. The Hippocrates had been designed as an experiment. Could humans build a ship that embodied both medical compassion and military strength? The answer was yes, but the real discovery was deeper. They had proven that showing mercy from a position of strength was not weakness. It was the highest form of power. The peacemaker had spoken with the voice of thunder, but its message was one of hope. Standing on the bridge of humanity's first medical battleship, Captain watched former enemies working together to heal the wounded. The stars around them seemed brighter somehow, filled with the possibility that even the oldest conflicts could be transformed by those brave enough to choose compassion over conquest. The war would continue, but now it would be fought differently. The Hippocrates had fired a single shot and changed the galaxy forever.